Hey! Quick warning before we continue. This is part 2 of 3 of the complete timeline of Fear and Hunger. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I'll leave a link in the description below. If you have seen part 1 already, or wants to watch this one without watching the previous one, we'll continue from where we left off. Last video I said that I would tell you about the mysterious Man of the Prophecies. And I plan on doing just that. He's Legard, if you didn't know, but right now we're just before the events of the first game, so I want to give you all an introduction of the main characters first, before talking about him specifically. So, without further ado... The year's 1577. The winters of Europa grew colder each passing year. Because of this, a great hunger had spread throughout all the north. The finest men of the capital of Oldegard decided to sail to the west, in search of food and riches. Their destination was Vinland, a place their ancestors talked about centuries ago. In that crew was Ragnvalder. As a man born with a tormented soul, his life was destined to be one full of hardships. The crew traveled for months with no end. Some died of weakness, while others embraced the depths of the cold sea. The remaining survivors had to resort to eat the corpses of the fallen to survive. And after finally reaching Vinland, they were met with horrors beyond imagination. Gray clouds floated above the sky. The soil of the land consisted of minerals that rejected sunlight, making everything black and hard to measure its depths. The trees and plants adapted the same features as well. And even worse, the land stored ancient deities and monsters never once heard of. Some members of the crew lost their minds after witnessing its horrors, while others pillaged anything of worth as fast as possible before leaving that dreadful place. Ragnvald and the remaining survivors returned to Oldegard. They came to understand why the name Vinland, it meant wineland, or the sheer amount of wine needed to make one forget about the terrifying place. During the trip, an ancient artifact was brought from the Dark Continent. It was the cube of the depths. Ragnvald knew it was a mistake to bring it, but unfortunately, he had no say on the matter. And, just a few years later, the bad omens proved to be true. In the year of 1590, Ragnvald returned from one of his many hunting trips, just to be met with his worst fears. His village had been attacked and was in flames. Not even his wife and child were spared. And even worse than that, the raiders stole the cube of the depths. A dying friend described the army behind the raid. It was the Knights of the Midnight Sun and its captain, the guard. Ragnvald would not let this stand. Burned with hatred, he immediately left the village to get his revenge. His target would soon meet the ire of the future god of Ultra Violence. Darcy was born a daughter of a noble family of the Kingdom of Rondon, the Catalysts. From an early age, she was trained to be a holy knight of Valmer. She endured all sorts of harsh treatments during that process, one that was not easy. But she kept bearing it all, because she believed she could protect the people of her country as a knight. Time passed, and Darcy proved to be a talented fighter. Only, it was a shame when she found out that the royalty of the Kingdom of Rondon did not act out what it preached. All the rewards from the wars fell into the laps of the small elite of nobles who sat comfortably behind the castle walls. The kingdom kept expanding its borders though, making slaves of the women and slaying the men. After learning this, Darcy's devotion was shaken. She could not keep up doing this, even though breaking the oath would bring great shame to her family that demanded her to keep being a knight. Her fate changed when she met the captain of a small mercenary army that shared the same resentment against the nobility of Rondon, the leader of the Knights of the Midnight Sun, Legard, a man of humble origins who gathered common folk around him with his immense charisma and otherworldly stature. Legard seduced Darcy, and with his warm words, he asked her to leave it all behind and join him. And so, she did. Due to her skill, she was given a high position in the army of the Knights of the Midnight Sun. That fit well with her natural leadership skills as a bearer of the dominating soul. The Knights of the Midnight Sun kept growing fast in the western regions, both in size and influence. The Kingdom of Rondon would use the mercenary army to its benefits at first, but with time, they started to see them as a potential threat to their sovereignty. Things changed when something also changed within Legard. He developed an obsession with the occult. This gave Darcy ominous feelings and haunted her nights with nightmares, but she stayed at his side through all of it. Until one day, things got out of hand when Legard, seemingly out of nowhere, decided to raid the northern capital of Oldegard, killing everyone who stood between him and the artifact they possessed. Later, that raid was used as an excuse by the King of Rondon to turn the population against Legard. The Knights of the Midnight Sun were attacked by Rondon, and Darcy was one of the few to survive. The guard was imprisoned, taken as a captive for political reasons, and sent to the war prison known as the Dungeons of Fear and Hunger. Darcy knew she hadn't much time before the guard was sentenced to death, so she rushed as fast as she could to the dungeons to save her captain and her beloved, and she would do so, no matter the cost. Enki was born into a family of dark priests, along with his twin sister. It was a common tradition that only the eldest child would inherit the legacy and rights of the cult. But since he shared the title of eldest with his sister, the two of them were forced into a death match using ritual daggers to fight. Unfortunately for Enki, he was born with a fragile body and was overpowered by his sister. She had her dagger on his neck at some point, but hesitated before dealing the final blow. Now, at this point, Enki's story comes to split. He either took opportunity from the mercy his sister showed him and stabbed her in the spine as she was walking away. Later, he revived her using necromancy and turned her into a ghoul as part of the ritual for becoming a dark priest. Or, he refused to kill his sister and was thrown into an underground well, left to rot to the death. He survived the punishment by learning the language of insects, turning them into his servants and making them help him escape. Enki was born with an enlightened soul. He was destined to forever seek knowledge and the secrets hidden from most. Either way, killing his sister or sparing her, he dedicates his life to the teachings of the Dark Priests anyway, spending his days learning about the gods and all fields of knowledge. Enki proved himself to be a prodigy and was acknowledged by the top scholars of the time. He was granted pass to the great libraries of the Kingdom of Rondon. But even after having access to all knowledge of history and science of the time, Enki felt he was reaching a breaking point. Nothing he learned seemed to make him closer to enlightenment. He couldn't achieve great conclusions or understand the great scheme of things. Enki gave up and decided to offer his life to Almer. But right before being crucified, the new goddess Nilvan showed him visions of the prophesied man, Lagarde, and how he was meant for greatness. Enki knew he had to learn more. He told the priests to let him down and went searching for the man. He knew Lagarde was sent to the dungeons of fear and hunger, and so he packed his things and decided to follow the path towards true enlightenment. While still just a child, Kahara was abandoned in the streets of Jatetia. He was born with an endless soul, a soul that made him yearn for freedom and made him spark with creativity. Creativity he had quickly put to use as he resorted for a life of crime in order to survive. As Kahara grew older, he took part in various mercenary armies and became an expert sellsword, to the point that when his brigade suffered an ambush attack, Kahara was one of the few who survived. That mercenary lifestyle led him to settle down in the Kingdom of Rondon, a place where silver was easier to get for the services he provided. There, he fell in love with a woman named Celeste, a slave and a prostitute who worked at the red light district. Things seemed to get better for Kahara, even if just a bit. But there was still something he worried about. Celeste was pregnant, and he didn't want the child to go through the same harsh life he did. Kahara wished there was a way he could buy Celeste's freedom and provide for his family. And not much time later, he was granted his wish. One day, the officials of Rondon themselves gave Kahara an ominous task. He needed to go to the dungeons of fear and hunger, a place built by Rondon itself, and rescue Lagarde from there. For some reason, they needed an outside sword like Kahara to infiltrate their very own stronghold. Kahara knew something was off. He heard the rumors about the place before. But Celeste's child was about to be born. The reward was too high to pass. He couldn't let the chance slip away, and so Kahara packed his things and left for his last mission. Now, we've finally finished introducing all the 4 playable characters, but there's still one important character left to talk about, Lagarde. I left him for last for a reason. You see, I think he might be the main character of Fear and Hunger 1. After all the other characters and plot threads revolve around him. Everything that leads to the game you get to play is because of him. So, let's do this for one last time, and let me tell you the tale of Lagarde, the prophesied one. Lagarde was a man born with humble origins, one of villagers and simple farmers. But that's all we get to know about his past, really. In the last section, I've introduced the soul type of every character. Rag had the Tormented Soul, Darcy the Dominating Soul, Enki the Enlightened Soul, and Kahara the Endless Soul. The soul type of characters dictated by the time they were born, much like the star signs of the real world. They seem to be related to the kind of life we will live, and everyone has one. Well, except for Lagarde. You see, we know Lagarde has no soul. That fact is probably linked with his role in the prophecies, and that the game states in multiple occasions that there is something different about him. While I have some theories of what that could be, I'll leave the topic for another video. So if you want to see me do a future video about him, do me the whole YouTuber thing, right? Like and subscribe? Done? Okay, back to the lore. Legard founded the mercenary army of the Knights of the Midnight Sun with the approval of the common folk. They had a lot of success and became very popular during their time. The thing is, one day, the new goddess Nuvan started visiting Legard in his dreams. Remember back in Darcy's intro when I said that Legard developed an obsession with the occult? Most likely it was Nuvan's doing. She visited him multiple times in his dreams, and they had a very wet relationship, let's put it that way, to the point they even had a child, the girl. Nuvan knew her reign and the era of the Fellowship was close to an end, and she was desperately looking for a way to prolong it. She started her relationship with Legard because she believed that he was the key for eternal existence, a topic that will be important for the next video. So she wasn't doing all of that out of her goodwill. You see, the game characters try to imply that Nuvan was a benevolent goddess, but if we stop to analyze what she actually did, it doesn't seem to be that way. She was most likely the one to tell Legard about the cube that was in possession of the Old Guardians, and how Legard needed it to visit the past Mahabre and sit in the Throne of Ascension. She also wanted the girl to continue from where she left off, letting her grow starving and afraid inside the dungeons. While a lot about Nuvan's just speculation on my part, what isn't speculation is the fact that Legard planned his own imprisonment. He made the attack against Odegaard brutal the way he did because he wanted the backlash that would come from it, causing him to be sent to the dungeons along with the Cube of the Depths. He planned his death sentence and the torture he went through. He even seduced a woman named High Priestess Selene in order to be sent to the lower levels of the dungeon, all for his great plan to sit in the Throne of Ascension and become a new god, one that would fulfill the prophecies told about him. Let's talk about the dungeon of Yungrakin itself. Like I said last video, the dungeons were built atop the ruins of the ancient city of Mahabre. It was a prison used by Ronda in war times. But eventually things started to go wrong. Madness seemed to spread to everyone. Underdark creatures came crawling from the depths. The darkness was so thick, even torches could completely illuminate it. The screams of the prisoners being tortured filled the halls. Dark priests were given permission to perform blood rituals and human sacrifices. Some people fell into madness while practicing rituals of Sylvan and Grogroth, trying to not be consumed by the darkness. Bad men were turned into atrocious monsters, and good men were turned into even worse bloodthirsty abominations. It was hell. And while I could talk for hours about the horrors or characters witnessing there, I figured it would take too long for this video, and I think it's best for you to find them for yourself. Oh, one thing that's very important to mention for this video. The reason for the darkness in the dungeons is that there is traces of an old god sleeping under it, the god of the depths, represented by the ninth sigil we find on the clock. Just the presence of their traces was enough to spread darkness and corruption all the way to the surface. And who is that god? We actually don't know much. He's a mostly forgotten god who is worshipped by the Forsaken and also forgotten. This god is still a topic for a future video where I plan to talk about him more in depth. But for now, let's continue with the timeline, shall we? There are already many good videos of people making their own version of what happened in the game, so instead of making my own headcanon here, I'll give you the tools so you can make one yourself. I'll go first by what we know is canon, and then what probably happened. And with it, you can decide for yourself your own order of events. From now on, there will be spoilers for the endings of the first game, so keep that in mind. Let's get a few things out of the way first. The members of the Fellowship were defeated. Chambara, Valtil, and Francois were slain. Nuvan, on the other hand, offered her soul to the character willing to help her daughter reach the heart of darkness, a place inside the god of the depths. Now we can finally talk about what endings we know are canon. First, Enki's S ending. Most of you already know about it, so we'll go quickly through this. Enki meets Nosramus in the dungeons, who teaches him about the great scheme of things, and that the Throne of Ascension is a trap. Nosramus incentivizes Enki to sit in the throne to see the reflection of himself as a new god. But to protect Enki from being seduced by the power, Nosramus gave him the Spirit Anchor, an ancient relic that would keep his soul from being tainted. Enki sat on the throne but returned from the void, taking the great libraries of Mahabre as his own. He took care of the new gods that still resided in the city, as well as learning the secrets for a prolonged life, becoming the most powerful mortal to exist. And with the enlightenment he achieved, he would write a series of books dissecting the true nature of the old gods. These are the skin Bibles we find in the second game. The second ending we know happened for sure is Ragnvaldr's S ending. Rag basically kills almost every evil creature inside the dungeons and leaves with the Cube of the Depths in his hands, and Moonless by his side. After leaving the dungeons, Rag dedicated his life to eliminate all traces of darkness that existed hidden from the eyes of the oblivious world. He was responsible for making most believe that monsters like the Bigfoot, Skinwalkers, and Wendigos are only myths, since they never seen one of them before. After all, most of them are dead by now. He also created his own clan of hunters that would follow his legacy for the coming centuries. The beast that he hunted down called him the God of Ultra-Violence. Pretty dope name, I'd say. Now, there's a lot of discussion surrounding Darcy's endings. No one knows for certain which one of them happened. It could be either her S ending, the C-2 ending, or both of them. To keep it short, in her S ending, Darcy finds Legard dead in his cell. And inside Mahabra she learns a secret dark magic to resurrect him as a bloody thirsty ghoul. We don't know if this actually happened, but if it did, she didn't find Legard dead once she came to the dungeons. There are a few dialogues by a headless guy in Termina that kinda proves that Legard was alive. So if Darcy's S ending happened, keep in mind he must have died after being rescued. Only later was revived with dark magic. So what about the other ending? In the C-2 ending, that might be canon, Legard reaches the Throne of Ascension and becomes a new god. After coming back, he would fulfill the prophecies and become a great god who would rescue humanity out of the darkness. If only the next ending we'll talk about, ending A, didn't happen. In this ending, the traces of the God of Depths are killed, the path to the Altar of Darkness opens, and the girl is taken there. Inside it, she absorbs the traces of the dead old god and emerges as the god of fear and hunger. We know for a fact that this ending happened, but we don't know exactly who helped her get there. The most likely candidate is Kahara. The reason for that is that there is no mention of him in Fear and Hunger 2, and from his dialogues, we can get a few hints that it was probably him. He must have felt sorry for the little girl and decided to help her. After all, the only reason he came to these forsaken dungeons was to provide for his own family. So in the end, Kahara has that energy going for him. Unfortunately for Kahara, he never made out. That darkness became his grave. The girl, now an ascended god, the god of fear and hunger, spared Kahara from the darkness of the age that would follow her ascension, gifting him with a peaceful death. She ushered a new age, a period so full of fear and hunger that it came to be known as... Eventually, the god returned from the void as a new god, but he failed miserably at fulfilling the prophecy he was so desperate into making a reality. The reason for his failure was none other than his own daughter, the god of fear and hunger herself. When the god of fear and hunger ascended, she did not answer prayers nor promised salvation for the masses. Instead, she was a manifestation of their own misery, giving hardships for the world as her blessing. People died in thousands to the deity, but that was not the end of it. For fear motivated people, while hunger kept them moving forward. She freed humanity from the stagnation it had experienced so far by forcing it to rise up to the challenge. She kept making things worse until she was finally bested by humanity's own strength. One that did not rely on the gods for help, and one that did not came from the old world order. Even when the Yellow King tried to guide humans, they had no need for another savior, for they had already found one in their cruel deity. But Legard would not give up that easily. His failed attempts spiraled the man into madness, and his methods became more and more violent as a result. But his attempts were to no avail, and Legard went down in history as the villainous Yellow King of Madness, falling into darkness of oblivion, only to eventually return with a new identity in modern times. Thanks for making it to the end of part 2. If you want to know more about the Cruel Age, the return of Legard, and the events of Fear and Hunger 2, click here to watch the next and final part. Hope to see you there!